Orders of the day. I recognize the member for Essex.
Order M211, please.
Order M211, third reading of Bill 211, an act to proclaim Persons Day. Ms. McMahon, Ms. Clancy, MPP Wong Tam.
I recognize the member for Beaches East York.
I move third reading of Bill 211, an act to proclaim Persons Day.
Now has 5 minutes for debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm proud to speak to my private member's Bill 211, Persons Day Act. Firstly, thank you to my co-sponsors, the amazing member from Kitchener Centre, the terrific member from Toronto Centre, as well the fantastic member from Haldimand Norfolk, who has been steadfast in her rock-solid support. I'm honoured to work with all of you, and I'm happy to be able to make some history with you here today. If passed, the bill will proclaim October 18th each year as Persons Day. On October 18, 1929, 5 very courageous Canadian women succeeded in having the word persons defined as always meaning both women and men. This decision of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council of Great Britain, Canada's highest court of appeal at the time, delivered the first significant legal declaration that men and women are equal. Hooray! Emily Murphy, Louise McKinney, Henriette Muir-Edwards, Irene Parlborough, and Nellie McClung, known as the Famous Five, challenged the meaning of the word persons under the Constitution, which at the time prevented women from being appointed to the Senate of Canada. As a result of what became known as the Persons Case, both women and men could be appointed to the Senate of Canada, thus enabling most women to participate more fully in public and political life. Individuals and groups have been able to build on the initial success of Persons Case, thanks to the Famous Five, and significantly achieve equality in other areas, including securing women the right to vote and run for MPP. The Persons Case also introduced the concept of our Constitution as a living tree that is able to evolve and adapt in changing times. Marking October 18th as Persons Day aims to inspire girls, women, and gender-diverse people to be nation builders and to expand the circle of leaders so that everyone can contribute to building their communities and their country and benefit from being a Canadian. It is because of the Famous Five that I am able to stand here today and serve my community of beautiful Beaches East York. And I'm happy to work alongside so many strong, powerful women and gender-diverse people, and I am forever grateful to the work of all those who came before me. I hope we can all work to be good role models to the next generation of leaders. I'm looking at you, Pages. Thank you to the government for your support of Bill 211, Persons Day Act. I hope we can continue to work together on legislation.
Further debate, I recognize the member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's an honour to rise and speak with you today, and I'm grateful to the member from Beaches East York, the member from Toronto Centre for including me in this amazing work. For far too long, a limited version of history was told. I never learned about these women, and I'm so proud to learn about them today. Emily Murphy, Louise McKinney, Henrietta Muir-Edwards, Irene Parlby, and Nellie McClung were courageous back then, and I admire their courage. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for them, and so I'm eternally grateful that women and gender-diverse people can be leaders in political life, and we know we have work to do. Still, there is a wage gap. Still, there is a gap for women taking leadership roles. We know there's more CEOs named John than there are CEOs that are women. So I encourage all of us to continue with this good work. I want to thank my family who puts up with a lot, Ryan and Zedra and James. And I am from a matriarch of lots of strong-headed women. And I think we all have people in our lives that were role models, encouraged us to be determined, not to be discouraged, and to be tough and keep going. And I know that many of us in this place do that every day to live our values fully. I look forward to enjoying this with all the organizations in my riding: Spectrum, Women's Crisis Service of Waterloo Region, SASC, YWCA, Marillac Place, and so many others that work every day to ensure that women and gender diverse people see their own value and worth, have what they need to thrive, and feel comfortable to take on these challenges. Thank you to all those who made October 18th Person's Day for this day going forward. Thank you.
Further debate? I recognize the member for Toronto Centre.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and it is with extreme pride that I rise to speak in support of Bill 211, a bill that was co-sponsored with the member of Beaches East York and the great member of Kitchener Centre. This bill, when passed, Speaker, as you know, will create a Person's Day every October the 18th. The name Person's Day originates from a pivotal moment in Canadian history. On October the 18th, 1929, the Judicial Committee of the British Privy Council ruled in the famous 5 persons case that women were legally recognized as persons under Canadian law, granting them the right to participate fully in public and political life. This monumental victory, spearheaded by the famous 5, Nellie McClung, Emily Murphy, Irene Parlby, Louise McKinney, and Henrietta Murr-Edwards, reshaped Canadians' legal landscape as we know it, and it took a giant, crucial step towards women's rights and equality. However, as groundbreaking as that day was, and as that case was, we must recognize its limitation. It did not include women of Asian descent, did not include women of Indigenous identity, and others. The person's case primarily benefited white, middle, and upper-class women. While many other women and girls and gender-diverse individuals still continue to face discrimination, that was the case after the ruling. If we are to create a Person's Day in Ontario, I would imagine it would be much more broader. It would have a bigger understanding of equality, one that now includes everyone, including those that continue to face additional barriers. So let's take a moment, Speaker, to look forward on what this bill can do. We must recognize that women, particularly those from racialized, Indigenous, and immigrant backgrounds, continue to earn much less than their male counterparts. According to information and data collected by Statistics Canada, women in Ontario make 87 cents on the male dollar, and that gap widens when you factor in women of color, Indigenous women, and women with disabilities. We must be able to do everything we can, Speaker, to close those gaps, to make sure that we end discrimination. We advocate for stronger pay, equity laws, workplace inclusion policies, and better access to childcare. 1 in 3 women in Canada experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime, and these numbers are even higher for Indigenous, transgender women, non-binary individuals. A Person's Day would highlight these realities and push for increased funding for shelters, housing, counseling, and justice reforms to protect survivors and hold perpetrators accountable. And despite advances, Speaker, we still know that in Ontario, women make up less than 40% of elected officials, and that number is even significantly lower for racialized, BIPOC, gender-diverse individuals. By celebrating the accomplishment of diverse leaders on Person's Day, we can inspire the next generation, Speaker, to see themselves in positions of influence while also advocating for systemic change that will level the playing field. Speaker, we also know that many individuals in Ontario, many women, face health care inequities and insufficient mental health resources, limited access to reproductive abortion care access, inadequate services for transgendered individuals. A Person's Day will help us amplify and remind ourselves of the work that we still need to do to address health inequities. A Person's Day will also, Speaker, allow us to think about how we are to move towards reconciliation in Canada, how we will address the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. It will allow us to amplify the calls for justice and reconciliation and equality for everyone. The living tree concept from the Person's Case, Speaker, taught us that the law and society must evolve to meet the needs of the present. In the same way, Person's Day can be the catalyst, an important catalyst for growth and transformation in Ontario. ensuring that everyone, regardless of gender, race, socioeconomic status, or identity, can thrive. In conclusion, Speaker, establishing a Person's Day in Ontario is about more than commemorating history, so much more. It's about building a future for true equality by acknowledging the barriers that persisted and that continue to persist. By committing to remove them, we honor the remarkable legacy of the famous five, ensuring the tree of equality continues to grow in Ontario, its branches reaching even further and farther than their foremothers ever imagined. Let us celebrate this together. This is a great day for Ontario.
Further debate? I recognize the member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Thank you, Speaker. It's an honour to join my colleagues that sponsored this bill in speaking to it today and commemorating Persons Day from here on after. As I thought about what to say, I reflected not just on their achievement, but on the emotional strength, the determination, and the courage that it would have taken them to get there. As a woman in leadership, I know many in the room will resonate this. I have had the experience of being told I'm too emotional to be an advocate, too emotional to lead, just too much. And I thought about what the famous five did and what drove it, and it was emotion, determination, first of all, a conviction that they deserved equality, not at some point in the distant future, but now, in their own time. It was frustration and anger, two of my personal favorites. Of course they were angry. They were angry at being told that they were less than men. They were angry at being told to stay out of the decision-making in a society that they helped build. And they did what I personally myself love to do with anger, which is turn it into fuel and bring it with you to a fight. Throughout history and now, emotion, I think, has been stigmatized. And women particularly have been dismissed as being too emotional to lead, too passionate, too much again. The famous five proved that emotion is not a weakness. It is a strength. Passion, frustration, hope, all of those are emotions that drove what ultimately became one of the most significant legal victories in Canadian history. Being told now that we're too emotional is an attempt to diminish our credibility, to silence us. But let's be clear. Emotion is what drives change. It sparks movements, and then it sustains them as you fight for them. In taking on the fight that the famous five took on, they had to step into a spotlight. I'm sure that they endured ridicule and resistance. They were probably called naive, they were called radical, they were called loud, they were called disruptive. In whatever parlance of the day, I'm sure they were called too much. So, in commemorating this day, Persons Day, and celebrating it, we celebrate women, human beings who felt fear and doubt and anger and joy and probably, if I guess correctly, joy at a fight, because I certainly recognize that, and we honor that. So if this legacy of the famous five, what it should do on Persons Day as we celebrate it is challenge us, call on us to challenge the perceptions of women in leadership and women in advocacy. If a woman fights for justice, if she shows frustration, if she speaks with passion, she is still far too often dismissed as too emotional. But, Speaker, the famous five showed that emotion is what is needed to get up every day and to fight. The Famous Five showed us that we can channel our anger at injustice, our stubborn hope for better futures, and our determination, and really build something from it. So for us to build on the legacy of the Famous Five, we have to remember that progress doesn't happen in spite of emotion. It happens because of it. And so every day, but especially on Persons Day, I will be encouraging all the other women who've been told that they are too much to stay angry, to stay too much, and to really live out the legacy of the Famous Five. Thank you, Speaker.
Further debate? Further debate? Further debate? Pursuant to the order of the House passed earlier today, I am now required to put the question. Ms. McMahon has moved third reading of Bill 211, an act to proclaim Persons Day. Is it the pleasure of the House that the motion carry? Carried.
Third reading of the bill. Troisième lecture, le projet de loi.
Be it resolved that the bill do now pass and be entitled as in the motion.